dkdynamite, and tonight we're going to be talking about Mansion, which is DLC 3 for Black Ops 6 Zombies. Definitely stay tuned. But it's been a very busy week following the launch of DLC 2, The Tomb. I covered quite a bit when it comes to all the Easter eggs featured on the map itself. Sincerely appreciate all the love over in those videos. I'll of course be covering even more as the days go on and as more content does get discovered. I do have a big story video also planned, breaking down more of the intel and other secrets you may have missed while playing the map. Either way, it's not too early to talk about the next round-based map, which has already been confirmed through the ending cutscene of DLC 2. I do recommend checking out my ending cutscene explained video that I'll have linked down below. That goes in a lot more detail with some of the easy to miss Easter eggs that are actually featured in that specific cutscene. The video tonight will just be focused on the mansion though. So as we got confirmation of from that cutscene, the mansion is actually a temporal flux research headquarters for Project Janus. So it's very likely time travel does get reintroduced into Call of Duty Zombies. I mean, it's been a little while since I think Treyarch really played around with a lot of those concepts. Something I said a couple of years ago is that with the introduction of this soft reboot Dark Ether story, I'm hoping that with the blend of magic and science, they reintroduce certain concepts like time travel a lot smoother than what they did with the original Ether story, just so that new fans who have jumped on board with the narrative, or just casual players in general, can actually follow along with the story a lot easier than they may have been able to with the OG Ether story several years back. Now, this map could also be related to the Shards of Tempest that have been referenced by SAM, since she said you can only get them over in Liberty Falls, aka West Virginia, where the mansion also takes place, as well as Janus Towers, which I believe is DLC 4, but we'll talk about that another time. I'm honestly predicting that we're not going to actually end up seeing a cinematic intro cutscene for DLC 3. If you're like, wait, how could they do that? Well, in all honesty, it does look like the intro cutscene for Mansion was already released, and it's actually the cutscene for Liberty Falls. So considering we got a beautiful cutscene taking place in the town of West Virginia, it looks like the ground's pretty much covered already for Liberty, Mansion, and Janus Towers. I don't agree with that, and I do feel like there could have been quite a bit explored, especially flashbacks with Sir Archibald and even Alistair Rhodes for a Tomb intro cutscene if they would have done one, and there is infinite possibilities for how they can fill in some gaps and, show us some context to intel in future intro cutscenes. However, considering how in-depth the Liberty Falls intro is, showing us the mansion, I think everything they wanted to get across to us has already been shown. Now, we already got a good look at Richtofen's sleeping quarters and some of the other areas around the mansion itself, and of course, he's using a Wonder Waff through this cutscene, which we'll also circle back to in a little bit. But most importantly, as we're also going to touch on later on, he goes to an underground lab, which I do believe is going to be a very important area when we actually boot this map up for ourselves. Now, we've seen a mansion before. It was, of course, within Dead of the Night, arguably one of the best Chaos maps, at least in my opinion. I know there were only 4. I've always adored that map. The atmosphere, the score, the music, the quest, the side Easter eggs, the wonder weapon even. I always had a blast playing this map. I really did. So I'd be curious to see how similar this mansion could be, or how much bigger it could be compared to the one that we saw all the way back in Black Ops 4. And although the mansion is technically some type of facility here within the Project Janus story, it still could make way for other fantastical elements like a potential gateway to the Dark Ether, or maybe even having ghosts roam around the mansion or something. There are still lots of elements that could be explored to where it's not just some building we're running through that is similar to Liberty Falls, considering that 3 locations that are likely to be round-based maps, Liberty, Mansion, and Janus Towers, are all within West Virginia. You can bet that Treyarch's gonna likely work on making sure all these maps feel as different from one another as possible, even if they are within the same state. Now, before we jump into what scale this map may be on when compared to Terminus, Liberty, Citadel, or even the Tomb, I do want to mention this specific report from known data miner Reality UK, who is still claiming that there are only 2 round-based maps left for Black Ops 6. So with these 2 codenames that have been found, I believe personally that it's very unlikely we'll get more than 4 DLC maps for this game. Fully well aware of the rumor that I also made a separate video on a few weeks ago, which is coming from the Ghost of Hope, that claims we are going to be seeing more than 4 round-based maps within BO6. That would be great. In a perfect world, seeing a new round-based map every season would be the best thing to happen to zombies in quite some time. Although with Treyarch working on what I believe is the next Call of Duty that comes out under a year from now, I think if we're ever going to see a zombie map every season, it probably won't be in a game like Black Ops 6 when they have another project to currently worry about. Now, I do love that Treyarch set expectations with the initial reveal of the Tomb on 115 Day. They compared it to Liberty Falls. They confirmed its replayability with several awesome quests, which we now know the map has. So they wanted us to know that it was more of a smaller scaled experience like what we saw with Liberty, but it wasn't a bonus map to where it's just kind of some expansion to Citadel. It is still the DLC 2 of the game, and I know DLC 2 was also strange for Cold War because that was actually Outbreak, but looking at how Treyarch only did intel drops for Terminus and Citadel, maybe that's going to give us a hint as to whether or not Mansion is going to truly be a big map or not. We'll see what kind of marketing they actually throw our way for this experience in the next couple of months from now, but it's of course become a big debate amongst the zombies community, right? Should we get maps like the Tomb almost every season so that we get maps more frequently, or should we end up waiting 3+ months like we used to back in some older Black Ops games for bigger and more in-depth type maps, such as what we saw with Terminus? Now, for me, when it comes to the size of a map, I really care about that gameplay loop and the narrative that that experience offers. The Tomb, I think, really nails gameplay. I just think narratively it could have done or introduced so much more, whether it was through an intro cutscene, steps to the main Easter egg, or even some intel. But honestly, there's a lot of redeeming factors of the map that I can accept in the place of what could have been a stronger story that was told. Now, I would find it hard to believe that both Mansion and Janus Towers will both be smaller scaled maps like Liberty Falls, even though they're both in West Virginia and are visible when you're in game thanks to the chopper gunner or even just a sniper scope. Even though that is the case, I could see at least one of the upcoming round-based maps being fairly large like Terminus. Maybe it's a case of saving the best for last and DLC 4 Janus Towers will be that map. Mansion might be a little bit smaller, but I will say is probably going to be on the same scale as what we saw with Citadel Day More, where it's not quite as big as Terminus, but won't be as small as the Tomb either. But yes, I know everybody loves their memes on Liberty Falls. We could totally expect Blanchard to make a return, or probably guide our crew through whatever the Easter egg is, since I'm sure Blanchard also wants to rescue Richtofen, unless you could actually see his actual character model in the map, similar to Ravenov from Cold War. I'm sure he'll be in a safe spot walking us through what we need to do. So if you're like, wait, DK, what's the release window looking like for the Mansion? Well, looking at how there may just be 2 round-based maps left, that's quite a big gap from now until what could be the next Call of Duty that'll likely drop in what, October or even November. So how are they going to spread out just 2 more round-based maps? That is the question. Should they have just saved Citadel and even the Tomb for a little bit longer so those maps could have been cooked a little bit more, and then there could have been a little bit of extra content, some other Easter eggs? Should that have been the route they took? Or are they going to drop DLC 3 and 4 relatively close to the Tomb, but then what's after that? Will there be a DLC 5 and 6 of some sort? Are we talking remastered maps? Are we talking major updates like, what, a mode like Gauntlet, Rush, Grief, Turned? I mean, maybe they have something else up their sleeve planned, even if there are only 4 total round-based maps. Only time will tell, but look at DLC 3 from a bunch of previous games, typically released around the summertime. Cold War, for example, we had Mauer in July. A lot of other DLC 3s were also around that point, with DLC 4 being at some point in September. But the reason I don't believe we're going to have to wait that long for the Mansion is, again, because they've already released DLC 1 and 2 so close to one another. I'd find it really hard to believe we're going to have some big 5 to 6 month gap before the next round-based experience. Treyarch at least has something planned, which I'll of course cover whenever that is revealed. But not too long ago, the Ray Gun Mark II ended up leaking out, which I do believe is going to be a universal wonder weapon added to all mystery boxes. That, of course, can make it harder to get what you want using Wonder Bar. But with the Wonder Off being shown in the intro cutscene for Liberty, that means it was here within the Mansion, and you can bet will be some type of Easter egg reward, something that we can probably get in both the mystery box and through a quest. This Wonder Off was, of course, already in Modern Warfare Zombies last year on the same engine, so it should be a relatively easy port. Again, I'm not a dev or engineer to tell you that, but I think it's probably an easy bet that we'll end up seeing this as the Wonder Weapon over in Mansion. Hopefully another new weapon as well. I wouldn't mind seeing a new Wonder Weapon and then 2 classics also added to the mystery box at the very same time. The thing is though, if the Wonder Off is the main Wonder Weapon for this map, that's going to be a little divisive since we've seen this Wonder Weapon in quite a few maps now, but may also make it feel more like a classic Zombies experience from all those years ago. Also wouldn't rule out the weapon getting added to the menu here where you can get skins for the Wonder Off in various bundles or Easter egg rewards at some point. But something really exciting, if you haven't been too big of a fan of the mix between magic and science or all the fantastical elements that we saw with Citadel and even the Tomb, is that something did get teased at the end of the Season 5 Modern Warfare Zombies cutscene where Ava Jansen gets pulled through a Dark Ether portal within Liberty Falls, and you can see some type of Shadowsmith walking towards her. People have speculated it could be the Shadow Man. You can literally see the Mansion in the background of that mirror, so I think it only makes sense that we get some type type of follow-up to that cutscene once we go back to West Virginia, which is going to be with DLC 3. I do believe, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, time travel is going to get reintroduced, which will probably help explain how Ava Jansen comes to the 90s, which may end up setting up some type of an event where she prevents the deaths of Requiem and prevents that cutscene we saw at the beginning of Modern Warfare Zombies. But it's also possible a paradox gets set up instead, where somehow she's the one that sets up some chain reaction where Requiem makes that sacrifice around the round table that we saw in that intro cutscene. But a big prediction from my end is that the main Easter egg of Mansion will be focused on rescuing Richtofen. I think it was unfortunate that Cold War Zombies really teased us with Richtofen at the very end, hinting that he's been around the entire time as a director, just for us to lose him again at the very beginning of Black Ops 6, and now having to wait until DLC 3 to hopefully rescue him so that he could play an integral role in some future round-based maps. Luckily, another Black Ops game is probably just around the corner, so that's probably where he'll have more of a role in. So that, of course, makes up for having to wait for his return within Black Ops Zombies. Now, based on intel that you can find over at the Detonated Codex, Richtofen is still voiced by Nolan North and doesn't look like his character was affected by the voice actor's strike. During the Easter egg on the Mansion, it's likely that we'll end up filling the Sentinel artifact with shards of Tempest, as mentioned earlier, which may somehow get Richtofen closer to his goal of restoring his family, giving them new bodies, or some type of objective where he gets to rescue his family from the past and bring them somewhere safer, maybe a perfect world like what Dr. Monty had back in Black Ops 3. That's a great theory also going around right now. But something really obvious is that the Requiem crew is about to learn that SAM is not to be trusted, and SAM actually is the reason why Richtofen got stuck in the Dark Ether. So I think there's no better map than the Mansion, because she's obviously located downstairs, where we'll get to face her head on to the point where she's probably going to be the boss fight, and this will likely be the map where we actually align with Richtofen and move towards his objective, even though that seems hard to believe right now. I wish there was more character dialogue to help bridge the gap better. Now, what I will end with is some additional narrative context that I'll follow up even more on in a story video that I have planned to come out in the next few days. But the Mansion itself was built by Josiah Shem sometime long ago. There's no actual date known on this. He was chosen and spoken to by an unnamed and ungendered voice that inspired him to create his cult, Shem's Flock, and the Mansion, Shem's Folly. Shem's quotes imply that he eventually killed all of his cult or committed mass suicide with them to ascend somewhere, likely weakening the gateway to the Dark Ether. We do learn in Vanguard that mass amounts of death weaken the dimensional membrane, so that's probably a Dark Ether god who was talking to this person to get him to weaken that barrier and open a gateway. There's lots of candidates, right? Cortifex has been name dropped quite a bit, so I'd be really curious to see if they actually tie him in. Maybe he didn't die after all in Vanguard, or somehow revive him unintentionally at some point. Lots of possibilities where this can go, but there has to be a big reason why they've been seemingly teasing so many connections to Chaos and even Vanguard. They're going to tie in a lot more than I think we've all predicted, and that may not end up happening until maybe Mansion or even DLC 4. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave our thoughts down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on everything we know so far about DLC 3 for Black Ops 6 Zombies? How do you feel about potentially facing SAM and rescuing Richtofen, plus everything else we discussed? Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.